Hello, everyone. I'm again. My name is Anderson Diaz. I'm a Brazilian engineer, graduated in Brazil, but I also hold my master degree in Italy in advanced automotive engineering, and I'm here in Brescia for a PhD. And now I will continue my study video. In the first one, I was performing some adaptations of to my drafts of my thesis regarding rubber friction, the topic regarding rubber friction, especially the topic from the author B.N.J. Pearson. Okay, now I will read and write the comments that I leave in this paper, which is the rubber friction, the role of the flash temperature. Okay, I already read this paper. And as everything that I read, I already forgot everything. So let's start. As everything that I read, I already. Okay, perfect. The sound is perfect. Okay. Okay, again, the introduction is it is interesting. All those papers they repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. So the introduction is the importance of rubber friction for tires in also auto parts like wipers, seals, belts, engine transmission, distribution belts, and also seals. Yeah. Rubber friction on smooth surface, e.g., on smooth glass surfaces. Most of these texts that investigations that deals with smooth surfaces work with glass. Has two contributions: adhesion and hysteresis. So let's highlight. Rubber friction on smooth substrates has two contributions, namely adhesive and hysteresis, and I already know that. Okay, adhesive contribution results from the attractive binding forces between the rubber surface and the substrate. Let's highlight this. For what? Because I like it. Yeah, and the rubber surface and substrate. Surface forces are often dominated by weak attractive van der Waals forces. Yeah, adhesion is mainly due to the van der Waals forces. Interactions, actually. For very smooth substrates, because of the low elastic modulus of rubber, even when the applied squeezing force is very gentle, this weak attraction may result in a nearly complete contact. Yeah, and this is what I was saying in the last video regarding pull-off force. Even when we don't have a proper load, we may have complete contact. In other words, the rubber will fuse all the gaps between the asperities. Okay, this for very smooth surfaces and low elastic modulus rubber-like materials, even when the applied squeezing force is very gentle. No, it's very weak. So it may result in a nearly complete contact at the interface. Okay, this is adhesion. 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 And this will result in a large sliding friction force. Okay. Do you And this is important for adhesive seals, O-rings, something like that. Okay, now rough surfaces. When dealing with rough surfaces, and I put another color because engineers usually spend his times deciding which color use. So let's use red. For rough surfaces, on the other hand, the adhesive contribution to rubber friction will be much smaller because the contact area reduces when I have a rough surface. So the smaller contact area. The actual contact area between, let's put here, is that is between a tire and road is about 1% of the nominal contact area footprint. They call footprint. Actually, in vehicle dynamics, sometimes we also calls tire footprint. And this is very interesting information, the actual contact area between a tire and the road surface. For example, is typically only 1% of the footprint contact area. And this article, especially this article, I also will put this article here in the references of the video, just for your concern. Here, right. Let's put in the reference description. References. Okay. Okay. Right. In the references. So, under these conditions, the bulk hysteresis friction mechanisms prevail. It is believed to prevail. Actually, it prevails, but there is also a minor amount of adhesion. Okay. And then Pearson talks a little bit about tire friction. And I like his examples of tire friction. For example, the exquisite sensitivity of tire road friction temperature just reflects the strong temperature dependence of viscoelastics bulk properties of the rubber. When a rubber block is slid on a hard surface, hard, rough substrate, the surface asperities of the substrate will exert a fluctuating force on the surface, on the rubber surface, which, because of the internal friction of the rubber statuses, will result in energy transfer from translation motion of the block into irregular thermal motion. So translational motion into internal thermal motions. Which is this internal thermal motion? The inner friction of the rubber due to its own uh, chemical characteristics, which results in an internal friction between the compounds of rubber, sometimes if filled, and also if filled, also the compounds of the reinforcements. So there is an internal friction which causes a raise of the temperature, and this temperature is bulk temperature. It's not the flash temperature of the surface, which is the flash temperature, which Pearson will say about that. Okay. So when a rubber block is laid on a hard, rough substrate, the surface asperities will exert fluctuating forces. The internal friction of the rubber will cause an energy transfer from translation to irregular thermal motion. Okay. This will result in a contribution of the friction force acting on the rubber block. And is the hysterical contribution. Okay. The energy dissipation will result in local heating of the rubber, since the viscoelastic properties of the rubber-like materials are extremely strongly temperature dependent. It is, since I'm not reading the periods, since the viscoelastic properties of rubber-like materials are extremely strongly temperature dependent, it is necessary to include the local temperature increase when calculating the friction force. At very slow sliding velocity, the temperature increase is negligible because of heat diffusion. Okay, I said that. But already for velocities of 10 millimeters per second, sliding velocities, the heats become important. Okay. Okay, let's go to the second topic, surface roughness and macroasperities. But let's see, all these comments that I made that here, it's already known, which is rubber has two components of friction, adhesion and stasis. Okay. Mhm. Section tire temperature. Okay, let's continue. Surface roughness. The influence of surface roughness in rubber friction cases, and actually not only rubber friction, but every case regarding sliding friction, is determined by the surface roughness power spectrum, a parameter given by the letter C, the letter C. C in function of Q, Q which represents the wave vector. There is a function which I cannot show here because I think you can show here this function. But in the next videos, I will use the tablet. I think it's a good strategy. Okay. Okay. Here. So the influence of the roughness is given by the power spectral density. Here I have H in function of X, which is x, a vector xy. Okay, this h is the substrate height measured from the average plane defined so that the ensemble average of h is 0. Okay, the ensemble averaging is an average given in the defined area, in an area which is known. Okay, and the author assumed that the statistical properties of the substrate are translation invariant and isotropic. So, when he say statistically invariant, statistical properties of the surface, because you take the surface, you scan the surface, and then you retain the RA, RM, R, those parameters of roughness. And then you perform statistical studies, root mean square, uh, average, model, okay? And then you perform the power spectral density. Those are statistical properties. When these properties does not varies along the longitudinal and transversal directions of the surface, we say that these are invariant. So CQ, our power spectral density, will only depend on the magnitude of the wave vector Q. Okay? Pearson 2006-1 close. Okay. So my surface is statistically invariant in any direction. The power spectral density depends of the wave vector. Okay. So there is a range of wave vector, a proper range for this one. So there is a range, so there is an upper and a lower value of the wave vector. Okay. Okay. Wave vector. Wave vector Q is defined by the division, the quotient between 2p, p is the Greek letter, 3.14, divided by a length. In this case, the length is L. If it is a rubber block, as I said in the previous video, it is the side of the block, of the nominal area of the block. If it is a tire, it is the groove of the tire tread, L, the size, the lateral size, the length of the tire groove. It is a seal, it is the thickness of the seal. uh, And, a lot of examples. If it is a wiper, it is the thickness of the tip of the wiper. Windshield wiper is what I'm talking about. Okay? Okay, let's continue. So I have the maximum Q, which is 2p divided by L, okay, which is the linear size of the surface. Many surface tends to be nearly self-affine fractal. Self-affine fractal. This is just a review. Every article, every paper of this author, he says that, and he already defined his model of friction in 2001. This is a paper from 2006. Many surfaces define self-affine fractal, which is what I said. The statistical properties are invariant in any direction. Self-affine fractal surface. And then, when I magnify the surface, the zoom, I observe in more closely, this statistical properties are the same. So, self-affine fractal surface has the property that if part of the surface is magnified with a magnification which is in general appropriately different in the perpendicular direction to the surface as compared to the lateral direction, then the surface looks the same, i.e., statistical properties of the surface are invariant under the scale transformation. Okay, this is we already know. And then we have since we have this, the equation of the power spectral density also changes. It is approximately, actually, it's not the equation. It's like the order of magnitude. The power spectral density is in the same order of magnitude that the wave vector at a power of -2 times the sum between the Hurst exponent, and I will explain later, plus 1. The Hurst exponent is a coefficient, is an exponent, which is related to the fractal dimension. This relationship is given by the Hurst exponent is equal to 3 minus the fractal dimension. So, okay. Let's put it here. Okay, 3 minus, yeah, okay. Of course, for real surface, this relation only holds in some finite wave vector region Q0 minor than Q wave vector minor than Q1, which is this Q0 minor than Q minor than Q1. Q1 is the upper. When I said the range of wave vectors, Q1 is the upper one, is the upper limit. Q0 is the lower limit. Okay. In many cases, there is a whole of wave vector, Q0, whole of wave vector, below which CQ is approximately constant. So those vectors are Q1, Q0. I'll call it whole rho of wave vectors. Q0, below which CQ is approximately constant. So when Q is minor than Q0, the power spectral density is constant. Asphalt and concrete roads, pavements, have nearly perfect self-affine fractal power spectra with very well-defined whole of wave vector Q0, 2p divided by lambda 0, which is of order of 1,000 meters at power of -1. Corresponding to lambda 0, which is a wavelength at Q0, lambda 0, of approximately 1 centimeter, which reflects the largest stones used in the road, in the asphalt. So asphalt concrete have nearly perfect self-affine fractal power spectrum with very well rho of wave vector Q0 equals 2p divided by lambda 0. This reflects the largest stone particles used in the asphalts. When I compare a surface we usually evaluate the surface with the power spectral density wave vector. The higher the power spectral density, usually the higher the friction coefficient. When Q is bigger than Q0, in some cases, the fractal dimension, and then I'm still referring to asphalt cases, which is measurements from Pearson. Usually the fractal dimension is about 2.2 for asphalts. Okay. Now, the author consider an elastic solid with a flat surface squeezed against a hard, randomly rough substrate. What happens if at a magnification about 1, the contact looks as if complete contact occurs? Magnification 1 is you are looking in a microscopic way. For example, it's like you looking to a tire in contact with the road. You are outside the car and you are looking to the tire. You step in the front of the car, looking to the tire, deformed due to the contact with the road. This is a magnification 1. This is an example, rough example. What time is it? Okay. Não quero suporte, não. Okay. So, zeta equal 1 is like my contact is complete. So let's highlight. At low magnification, zeta equal 1, it looks as if complete contact occurs between the solids at many microasperities contact regions, but when the magnification is increased, smaller length scale roughness is detected. This is important because it's quite confusing. Zeta nearly 1, zeta nearly 1 is a low value. If I increase, um, and if I increase, I can see the surface more closely and I can see the asperities. Okay, so, but when magnification is increased, zeta, the length scale roughness is detected, and it is observed that only partial contact occurs at the asperities. In fact, if there is no short distance cutoff, the true contact area would vanish. Um, e aí é o ponto. This is the deal. I can increase magnification until a certain threshold, which is the short distance cutoff. So I can increase until one point, short distance cutoff. Why? Um, let's reflect a little bit. I see the tire and he's in complete contact because I'm seeing step outside no, the tire, and then I increase magnification. I have a very special sight, and I increase magnification, increase, and I see the contact, and I start to see the rubber touching the asphalt, and I start to see the asphalt aspect, and then I see that the rubber is not completely feeling the asperities of the asphalt. Okay. If I increase more and more and more and more, the contact area, effective contact area, true contact area, real contact area, reduce until one point that it doesn't exist. This is not real, but it reduces. But actually, there is a short distance cutoff, and for this reason, it is necessary one, which is the atomic distance in reality. For rubber friction, the effective short distance cutoff may be much larger, a micrometer order. Okay, and this is the point. The short distance cutoff of the rubber is related to the degradation of a thin rubber layer due to the high stresses and temperature which is exposed during sliding. When tires are rubber, let's talk about rubber. When rubber is worn, um, he lost material, lost lose material, lose weight, and expose this rubber to a degradation. This degradation generates a thin layer of degraded material, now oxidize like an oxidation. It's not the same thing, but something like that. And this create an additional very small effort And this changes the short distance cutoff of um, of the rubber because it depends of the degradation. And degradation depends on the environment, depends on the operational conditions, depends on the roughness, depends on a lot of things. Just this. Okay, magnification refers to some arbitrarily chosen reference length scale. This could be e.g. lateral size L of the nominal contact area, in which case is zeta equal to L divided by lambda. Now the magnification is another equation. Ciao! Ciao, see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Porra, falei, porra, vou falar tudo. Pô, agora atrapalhou. Agora atrapalhou. Puta que pariu. Returning to English. Okay. Seus pífios. Ok. Aí, the magnification refers to some arbitrarily chosen reference length scale, which is the L that I mentioned previously. This could be the lateral size L of the nominal contact area, so zeta equal to L divided by lambda, where lambda is the shortest roughness length, wavelength component or length scale, which can be resolved at a magnification zeta. In this paper, we will consider surface power spectra on the form of figure 1. And we will use the roll-off wavelength lambda 0 equal to P divided by Q0 as the reference length so that zeta equals lambda 0 divided by lambda, which equals to Q divided by Q0. Okay? Okay. An important, what time is it? I think my time is gone. Let's check. You start here tomorrow. Macro asperity contact area. Macrospheric contact area. Okay. It is important to understand the concept of macrospheric contact area because I already mentioned in this video and in the previous one, which was badly recorded. So, according to Pearson, assume that the surface roughness has the qualitative form in the figure 1. Difficult. Let's show you the figure. Figure 1, you see the power spectral density correlated to the key wave vector. You have a constant zone between QL and Q0, which is the lower and upper range limit. And then I have from Q0 to Q1 the decay. Okay, don't have this in mind. With a hole of wave vector Q0 corresponding to a magnification zeta equal 1. Okay. Zeta equal 1. In this case, the macrospheric contact is the contact region between the solids when the system is studied at low magnification zeta equals zeta m, which is approximately between 2 and 5. At this magnification, low squeezing pressures, one observes a dilute distribution of randomly distributed microasperity contact regions with lateral size typically of order of lambda 0 divided by lambda zeta m. The magnification is increased each macroasperity contact region. As the magnification is increased, each macroasperity contact region breaks up into a relative dense distribution of much smaller microasperities. This is the concept of fractal. You approximate, you have macroasperity, and this macroasperity becomes microasperities that as you increase the zoom, it becomes macro, which has a lot of micro, and then the micro becomes macro, and then uh, you are stuck in a loop like the screensaver of Windows 98, Windows 95, and Windows 98. As the magnet, okay. So this is the macroasperity concept. Okay, this is the macroasperity contact. It's a contact that has microasperities, and then you approximate, and you see the microasperities become macro, and this now macroasperities has another micro that also became macro. If I continue to increase. Okay, let's stop here. It is a lot of sick content, and I'm tired of this shit. See you tomorrow.